Hey everyone, welcome back to the Primal Blueprint Podcast. We are here with Shawn Wells, and we're going to talk about his new book called The Energy Formula, 6 Life-Changing Ingredients to Unleash Your Limitless Potential, available on Amazon, Kindle, and hardcover. Shawn is sort of the world's leading nutritional biochemist, which is a really interesting place to be. And he's really considered like the master formulator, a scientist of ingredients. He's a good friend. We have talked many times, and one of the sweetest, most vulnerable, open people you'll meet, who also is very open about a lot of his health struggles that led to this sort of journey to get, optimized on health. So, Shawn, let's just start off with what led you into this? What even got you down? Like, when did stuff started to go wrong with you? I know. And tell us what started to go wrong in your life health-wise that made you, perk up and go, this isn't right.
Yeah, it's been most of my life, probably up until the last year and a half. There's been a spectrum of like wake up calls and shifts and wake up calls and shifts. But I started my life with, a chaotic childhood, and I grew up obese and the junk food junkie, eating all the Oreos and Coca-Cola and Frosted Flakes and all those things because of bullying, because of the chaos in the home and all that kind of stuff. And I grew up depressed and often with suicidal thoughts and not exactly full of energy and happiness and hope. I ended up going to business school at a school called FISSN, and started working out while I was there. And I started shifting my body and how I was looking and feeling, because I had pretty severe body dysmorphia and disordered eating throughout that period, and still battled that for years, even after this workout bout. But I ended up going to my physician and talking to him about my passion with supplements and working out and how I was seeing a difference. And he drew out a lifeline for me and said, it was a lifeline between 20 and 80. And he said, why not be happy between here and here? And for me, that was like a massive shift. Like, it gave me permission to go pursue my passion. There wasn't like the Instagram influencers. There wasn't people that were just, I'm going to be a brand. And,
Yeah, that was not happening.
At that point, it was like, you want to work for, Anderson or Price Waterhouse, or like, especially when you're in business, you wanted to work with a
Yep.
consulting firm or something. So him telling me this and it being a medical doctor, like, that literally changed my life path and gave me permission. I ended up finishing up my business degree. And then I needed 26 credit hours a semester to crank through all the sciences and labs I needed so I could get into my dream school of UNC Chapel Hill to get my master's in nutrition and biochemistry and exercise science and all that stuff. And 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 I ended up going to UNC Greensboro to do that. It's interesting. I had a guy that was the guidance counselor there tell me, you're a business student, you'll fail and you'll fail miserably, and you're not even in that good a shape. And I left there crying and almost committed suicide that night. And so, like, it's really the polarity, if you will, of two people that really could have and did radically change my life path. Luckily, I did not take my life. Luckily, it strengthened my resolve, and I thought of that guy every single day instead of going out to bars and partying and all that kind of stuff. I thought of that guy and what he said to me every single day on like a borderline unhealthy passion, thinking of this person. And I ended up getting straight A's, getting into UNC Chapel Hill. And there I was cruising along, but working 80 plus hours a week, working at GNC, getting online message boards, like doing all the schoolwork, interning as an RD. And I ended up getting very sick with Epstein-Barr, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, Hashimoto's. And I was in bed for 6 months. Again, thought about killing myself because I thought my dream was over and I would never be out of bed. And that's when my supplementation shifted from sports nutrition, aesthetics, and performance to now a very different type of thinking, like with autoimmunity, immune health, longevity. And luckily, I found the ketogenic diet. I started eating more whole food. wasn't called paleo quite yet, and it wasn't called biohacking yet, but I was doing all those things. And I worked in dietetics for about 10 years. That was interesting because I was having to prescribe low fat diets for people that had heart issues, put people on carbs all day long that were diabetics. I couldn't put someone on creatine that had sarcopenia. There's like all the things that I knew to do or that I knew were right, I was coming in conflict with. And people don't understand that like you lose your license, you can get sued. It's bad. Like the responsibility that you have to buck standard of care. And so that definitely left an imprint on me, and I wanted to leave the clinical background, even though I was proud of it, and it gave me a good foundation. And then another big turning point was about 8 years ago when I had my dream job at Dymatize. I was now a formulator working at a big company, but we were pushing for sale, working 80 plus hours a week. This is a trend for me. And we eventually did sell the company for 425 million, but I got a brain tumor. And again, like, I'm like, what's
You're
going
like,
on
come
here?
on,
Yeah,
why
my
me?
body, yeah, my body is like, what, like, why are you doing this to us? And, I kept learning more biohacks. I kept getting more dialed with like exercise and biohacking and paleo and keto and working with functional medicine doctors and all these things, but I wasn't loving myself or taking care of myself. And it was only like a year and a half ago, especially when COVID happened, I was lined up last year to work 300 days, to be traveling, sorry, to be traveling 300
Yeah,
days.
and for those listening, like when Shawn says traveling, it's like China one week, South
Yeah,
America the next. Like it's
yeah,
crazy time zone shit. I remember
yeah,
how exhausted some of those trips were. And I'm like, oh my
yeah.
God. I was actually happy when the pandemic hit because I'm like, oh my God, now Shawn doesn't have to freaking go anywhere.
Yes, yes, exactly. And I've spent my whole life thinking that happiness is a destination, that success is a destination, that sexy is a destination, and these are achievements that I can go out there and accomplish. And that if I get more letters after my name, if I get more money, if I get to this weight, if I travel to this place, if I get on this TV show, if I get in this documentary, if I get my book at bestseller status, if I do, then I will get love from other people and love myself. And it was finally when I got into the plant medicine space. And by the way, I've rewritten my book 3 times because of all these shifts. And I even recorded it 6 months ago fully and re-recorded it about a month and a half ago
Mm.
because of all these shifts in my heart and where I've come from. But like I finally learned to love myself, grant myself grace, give myself space, get the right people around me, start talking to myself the right way, have gratitude in my life. And I love how biohacking is kind of moving that direction, like to more of this self-care woo direction, if you will. But psilocybin in general, like that's been one of the biggest shifts for me, both on a microdosing level and journey level. The shifts I've been able to make have been really groundbreaking for me.
Well,
And
you're what I would categorize. I could be wrong, and disagree with me. I don't want to declare you as something that you're not. But in my conversations with you, I was thinking, you're like, I would guess like you were a people pleaser for a long time, probably.
100%. I mean,
Maybe
that's
still
how.
battle with it because you have that. And I remember being like, oh, and I guess I'd love to hear your opinion on this because, um, people pleasing is really keeping one in like sort of a victim state, and it's
Yeah,
also not really honoring your boundaries. You're not honoring your
100%.
truth. You don't want to speak up. How much of that contributes to all the stuff going on in
100%.
here? So much, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder, like, I mean, on that level, you go the health route, you go the like formulation route, you're doing all the like sciencey part, then you get to the like mindset, emotional, dealing with trauma, all this kind of part. I mean, let's talk about some of like, what were some of those moments, or what are some things that you catch yourself now where you would have been like in a people pleasing state and now you go, no, like, are you speaking up more? Like, what is it about your life that shifted there coming out of people pleasing?
Yeah, and actually, I just did NLP certification last week, and that was very helpful on
Mhm.
understanding some of those dynamics as well. And I agree. Yes, absolutely. I was not good at setting boundaries. And I think now I talk about that as being one of the most important ways of expressing self-love
Yes.
is setting up those boundaries and literally telling your body that I got your back. You know, that I'm not going to like give away our energy. I'm not going to put myself in unsafe situations or draining situations or depleting sympathetic nervous system situations chronically where things don't feel right. I got your back. I'm going to stand up for us. And that's something that I find myself, it's a habit. You know, it feels uncomfortable at first,
Mhm.
but the one thing I found too, like in my business relationships, it actually showed up the most. I was getting burned repeatedly because I'm an intellectual property guy. I'm a creative, brilliant mind when it comes to these ingredients and all these things. And I kept getting these ingredients taken from me and kept getting in bad situations because I do handshakes. And I was like, these guys are my guys. I can trust, like, this is great. And then I get screwed over because I wasn't setting boundaries at the beginning. And yes, it's important to set boundaries just as you go in life, but man, I found it so critical, especially at the outset. If you just lay out the ground rules, if you lay out like how we're going to go about this together, I'm going to tell you like my expectations at the beginning,
Mhm.
and that's the game changer. But
Yeah, I know.
you
And
know,
on
you're
that note,
someone that's confident as fuck, so
well,
what can I
no,
say?
I mean, like if it were a best friend of mine, we're
Yeah,
writing it down. We're putting it in writing. I just feel like let's not leave room for
right.
interpretation later. No, I did or didn't say that. I've had things with text people like, I never said that. And I'm pulling up the text thread and I'm like, here you go. Like, yeah, it's in writing. So I am a big fan of that. And here's the thing. This is what's weird is that when you're working with people you love or you know or you've worked with for a long time and you kind of quote trust them, it's not to say that you can trust them. It's just better to be clear and have everything laid out. That way there is nothing later that makes you go, uh-oh, are they going to screw me over? Because they can't now because it was written down. And I just think it also is just, again, getting clear with people, and having that sort of opening to that relationship to be like, we're good, same page. Okay, here we go. And so I think that that's really important for everyone to do that, even if it's, again, like a friend or someone you're going to get in business together. Don't just have the conversation of like, oh, we're going to split everything 50-50. Write that shit down, make a little bit of an agreement. Don't have to go see a lawyer, but do something to memorialize that. And essentially within those documents, within those agreements are the boundaries, right? They're inherent within what people are willing to or to not do. So I'm so glad you're doing that. Let's talk about you mentioned multiple problems earlier. So brain tumor, is that the pituitary
Yeah,
tumor?
yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
so where is that now? Is it still there? Is it living with you forever? It's just kind of there, or how does
It's
that?
yeah, it's there forever,
Okay.
but it's a minimal size. I take cabergoline and I've worked with you on some of this. And by the way, anyone listening, Elle Russ is a genius at functional medicine, helping me like work with a really great doctor.
Oh, Gary Forsman, we'll give a shout out
Yep.
to him. He's the doctor on my thyroid book because
Yes.
we thought maybe there's a thyroid thing, but I wasn't sure, and there's a
There,
lot of complication there, and I wanted to send you to like
yeah, there
the
is,
guy.
and it actually has helped that I've been on a very low dose a thyroid medication. So yes, it's helped for sure. So thank you. And yes, like you've been an amazing help there. So but yes, it's kept minimized at this time, and but obviously I
Tell
had
us a
a
little bit
higher.
though, for people that don't know, how does a pituitary tumor like the one you have, how did it screw with your hormones in your system? Can you just kind of give everybody a touch of
Yeah,
what that
yeah,
meant for your body?
yeah. So it's like it's also called like a prolactinoma in this case, and so my prolactin was sky high, and therefore my testosterone was in the trash. It was like 70, 71 or something like that. So it was really low. And that's how I discovered this is I started having headaches because this thing was getting fairly big and it was putting pressure behind my eyes. And I was getting these bad headaches. I wasn't sleeping well. You know, your pituitary is like just critical across the board.
Yeah.
And so I was sleeping terribly. I was getting skinny fat. I was like losing my muscle and kind of getting like fat to replace it. I wasn't really changing in weight, but I was just, my body composition was off. And I just felt like I didn't have the capacity to deal with stress. I felt tired during the day. uh, it sucked. Like I was not doing well, and I knew something was really wrong. And that's when we did some blood work and found out that my testosterone was so low, my prolactin was so high, my beta estradiol was sky high, and then we assumed that this could probably be a prolactinoma, pituitary adenoma, and we did some scans and confirmed that.
So it was larger at one point. Now it's shrunken. You've sort of been able to like keep it at bay. Did the size of it matter on how it actually affected certain things?
Yeah, 100%. When it
Okay.
was larger, yeah, exactly. When it was larger, it was secreting more prolactin and far more problematic. Yeah.
That's great. All right, let's get to the energy formula. Everyone wants more energy. We can start off right now and say, don't freaking work 80 hours a week and sacrifice sleep. Okay. I'm sure you, yes, sleep is so important. Um, but let's talk about this because listen, there's 100 million supplements out there. People are, are wondering what they do. A lot of the ones you list are unique or not classic in our vocabulary as people that are out there going by the Whole Foods aisles, looking at stuff. Um, Obviously, without this book is really great, you guys. It's really in depth, so we can't cover all the details about this. But can you just go through a few things that you're like, hey, here's how to improve your energy? And I know you and I would say like either keto, low carb, paleo, whole food diet, sleep. That's kind of standard coming on the Primal Blueprint podcast. But what else do we need to maybe think about that we haven't?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so the energy formula is actually an acronym for experiment, nutrition, exercise, routines, growth, and your tribe. And so I explore each of those in the book. And then I have formulators corners in each chapter where I go through the brands of supplements, the doses, and then I also have resource hacks where I go through the techniques, the apps, the devices that I'd recommend. And there's surveys throughout the books. There's 60 full color diagrams, over 100 scientific citations. It's 400 pages, so it's pretty involved. And you also, like when you do buy it at energyformula.com, you get the fasting for energy guide that's about 25 pages. It gets into even fasting for women and how that works. And then there's a hidden chapter on natural ancestral movement, which I'm proud of as well. And I'm sure you've covered that a lot on this show. But as far as other things, the through line in this book is resiliency and understanding allostatic load, the size of your stress bucket being harder to kill, which I'm sure is something that you identify with, and having enough ease in your life. If you don't have enough ease, you're going to be in a state of dis-ease. And that's where I was. I wasn't in a parasympathetic state enough. I didn't get into autophagy enough. I didn't have rest and digest and relax enough. And so I was in a state of hustle and grind where I was sympathetic or ultra sympathetic. Like I was never in the flow state. I was never in a relaxed state, a non hyper vigilant state.
Right.
And so my body was paying the price. And that's why I've had so many surgeries, so many medications, so many illnesses and diseases. And even though I knew all the biohacks, but all the biohacks were a means for me to survive. They weren't a means for me to thrive. I didn't have the solid foundation. So like the
They were
latter
like
part
they
of
were
the
like the rescue ship, not
yeah,
the foundation. They were, yeah, I get you.
exactly. And so the latter half of the book, like where I get into growth, like growth mindset, fasting, nootropics, and then your tribe gets into like community connection, blue zones, all that kind of stuff. Like that's really a key to resiliency, is having those pieces. And those are the pieces that I was missing. Like I knew how to do, like keto got me out of bed, out of pain and inflammation, and paleo and doing the functional medicine and experimenting with myself and taking these supplements and doing exercise. I was doing high intensity interval training and blood flow restriction and intraset stretching and all these hacks that I go through. But I was lacking definitely the community, the connection, and the purpose, the why. And those pieces are so critical. Like if you look at the Harvard study that's over 80 years running now, the number one determinant of longevity was quality of relationships. And they looked at literally everything. I mean, every like socioeconomic status, blood work, like genetics, like they've looked at everything. That's the number one determinant. And when you look at the blue zones, it's the same thing. Like we always want to talk about like red wine or Mediterranean food and, you know, resveratrol, and those things help and are important.
It's their communities and the
But
blue
it's the
zones that.
community. Yeah, it's the
Yeah, and
community.
that's the strange thing about that. So like, you know, there's not like a lot of controversy, but there are a lot of cherry picked countries in the blue zones. There's things about it you can look at and, you know, be devil's advocate. But the one thoroughfare that you just kind of can't replicate just immediately somewhere that maybe these old cultures have. I mean, we can try to, that's the goal, is this sense of community, tribe, and also like lots of very like old school, like lots of long walks after dinner,
Yeah.
you know, like just enjoying each other's company. And some of them, like one blue zone with the Seventh-day Adventists, right? It's because, you
Yeah.
know, they also have like a religion in common, right? They're all into one purpose. They feel supported by each other. That is a very tight-knit community. So it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing that I've explored too is like the idea of like a psychosomatic anchor where it's not just the food for them, it's or the wine or it's really about how they're eating it in this community scenario where they have maybe 8, 10, 12 people sitting around a table and they have multiple rounds of food and they're relaxed, they're in that parasympathetic state so that when they have food it anchors parasympathetic nervous system.
Right. They're
With
not like
us,
da 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 running out the
yeah,
door. They're not like, yeah. And then what a
exactly.
very European way too, you know, when you like many years ago, maybe not now, but many years ago when I was to Europe, that's what I love about it. I love the long dinners, the sitting
Yeah,
outside, no one's on their phone. People are just talking and hanging out at the table for hours. It's not, we're going to eat and then we're going to go and we're just going to all hang out. And it's such a, you're right. Like that vibration is probably the way to receive nutrients.
right, right. It's being mindful, it's being present not only with the people, but the world, the food, like you're literally present in your life, not distracted with your phone, the TV, like the email, the things you have to do, the you know, it's a very different thing. And then if you think about it, when we're eating here, like you're saying, we're shoveling food in, we need to get through it as quickly as possible. We got places to be, like we're getting it out of the vending machine, the convenience store, the Uber Eats, the Grubhub. We're eating it while we're in our car. And even if it's quote unquote healthy food, a green shake, a, you know, paleo meal, whatever, I really believe this is anchoring sympathetic nervous system so that we're in like the more fight or flight mode when we eat food, no matter how good it is, if we're putting ourselves in that situation. So that's very different. So you can't just take, some people have asked me, like, you know, is drinking wine healthy? And I would say, you know, it's hard. Like, how are you drinking it? Like, they're drinking it over the course of hours, and obviously it comes from better farms. And I don't know if you talked about this on your show. I mean, I'm sure you talk about hormesis and certainly resilience, but interestingly, xenohormesis with these grapes, if they come from more difficult climates, more arid climates, tougher soil, more sun, then they're higher in these polyphenols. And what's really cool is you're consuming these higher polyphenols if you're drinking that dry farms, you know, wine essentially. So
Yeah,
that's
dry
cool.
farms wines, by the way, for everyone listening, that's like your cleanest paleo wine. That's sourced from the best you can possibly get, and they're delicious.
Yeah.
I'm not a big wine drinker, but I've had a lot of I've tried a lot of their products. They're great. And all my friends who are wine drinkers are like, wow, I feel so much better after drinking this stuff because it's devoid of so much of the crap that's out there in regular wine. So yeah, dry farms wines, we'll give a shout out to
Hmm.
them for sure. Yeah, if you're going to be a wine drinker, you might want to look in that direction.
And sip it and relax with it and
Mhm.
enjoy the company you're with. And
Right.
again, you know, have those parasympathetic anchors, and then that will be more nutritious to your body.
Yeah, yeah. I would probably say the same would go for like a dessert,
Hmm.
you know, because people are like, you know, and just enjoy, like no guilt, no, just enjoy it, really simmer in it, get into it. Don't, you know, because again, those feelings can come up too when you've made a decision to have something like that. And then you're like, it's like, no, just own it, enjoy it. Um, So here's the thing. Have you knocked, I mean, and now it's the pandemic, but are you committed to stopping the 80 hours a week and the rat race?
I am. It's hard when you're launching a book, but I am. I've been doing so much more self-care. I've probably been doing 2 journeys a month, really like deconstructing like the ego and stuff I was projecting out and stories I was making myself believe,
Mm,
undoing some traumatic memories and kind of taking the charge off those and seeing those in kind of a third person view by using this, like one technique I was using was quantum timeline therapy and NLP, but also doing again the plant medicine that puts you in kind of that headspace that allows you to do that easier. And I've been having mentors I've been talking to on a weekly basis, been going to masterminds either online or in person, smaller groups, and it's just helped me to get in the right headspace, have the right voices around me. And then I really have been putting a focus on gratitude and affirmations. I've been changing that voice pretty dramatically so that I'm caring for myself more, loving myself more, appreciating myself more. As I know, like going back to the boundaries thing, like how I project myself out there is how I'm telling people how I deserve to be treated. And typically, the if anyone talked to us like we talk to us, we wouldn't be their friend. So I've been having positive self-talk and also projecting out what I want to receive, and that's been key for me.
I love it. One of my pet peeves in life is people being like, "Hey, keeping busy?" Like, why?
And busy is like the worst word.
Right,
It's
like,
like,
but as if it's valued so much, and then people are
right,
like, "Oh, yeah," and then they go into a line of justify. So when people ask me, I go, "Why would I want to keep busy?" In fact, I think everybody is looking for more time to not be. Isn't that everyone's goal in life? Like, I make money and get retired so I can do nothing, so I can hang out, so I can enjoy life. So it's very strange because we have this culture of like feeling like if you're not busy, somehow that's bad. But I'm with you because my working 80 hours a week with my hands 20 years ago ruined my hands. This thing of like, let's go, bust it up, like that killed me. It ruined my arms. It ruined you into a certain degree. I mean, we're
yeah,
repaired, we're repairing. Um,
right.
and so in a way, I was forced. Some people are because people do consider me like, oh, type A, you must be busy all the time and stressed out. I'm like, no, because I am limited by my hands in a way. It's a gift. It's like the hand thing made me go, well, you can't work 24/7 on a computer all day long. So unless you're willing to hire people to do that other work for you, it looks like you're going to have to enjoy some part of life. My life is so much better as a result. There are moments when my type A and my energy to want to do things will override my capabilities, but for the most part it kind of keeps me in check. Does that make sense? And I'm not like I would wish this upon anybody, but in a way I'm like, and that's what people are like, oh, you're really good at finding time for yourself. I'm like, well, I'm sort of forced to, in a way. Like there's just a certain amount of capacity I have for arm movements in a day. I can't do 8 hours on the computer every day 5 days a week. After 5 days I will start to get inflamed, and I've got to manage it. And it's all natural to me. It's not fine. I live great. Let's play a game of ping pong. But if I overdo it, forget it, and I'm in bigger and better trouble. And so, I know you've obviously learned this lesson, like running this rat race, and a lot of people, again, it's a social construction of feeling like they need to prove themselves. Like I've got every hour. I was so busy today. Our ancestors didn't do that. And granted, they didn't have computers and they didn't have businesses and things like that. But that's so anti-ancestral to 24/7. This is what even Mark Sisson, when I used to be his assistant back in the day, briefly before I hosted the podcast and became his author, I I would be at his house all the time. I mean, yeah, he'd get up, enjoy his morning, quiet. He'd go to the gym. He'd leave his phone at home almost every time. Just leave it at home. I knew he would at the gym because I'd see his phone there. And I used to be like, he's crazy. I would never go to the gym without my phone. Yeah, but he knows something, right? He knows the ancestral thing. And then he'd come back and he'd always make time to like jump in the cold pool, sit out on the sun for a bit. Like I saw this. He was making time for him despite running a crazy company, right? And I'm sure a lot of mental stress. He'd admitted himself, but I saw that he was making the time for that, where most people in his position would have just been go, go, go all day long. And I really admire that. I think that's, again, the foundation of primal ancestral living is we forget that part of the modern world. you know?
It's being present. It's being mindful and enjoying your life. And if your head's down and grinding like I was, and you're sacrificing and you're miserable, like, and trying to get to somewhere, some level of achievement that's enough, and of course it'll never come,
Right.
you'll never enjoy your life. And it's just a horrible way to go about life. You need that balance of hustle and flow. You need to be in that flow state where you are mindful, where you are present, where you are enjoying life, where you are resilient, where you are recovering, where you're allowing yourself to be productive. It certainly should be productive over busy, and self-care is going to help that productivity. Busy just means distracted to me. We're on our cell
Point.
phones, and all these people that say, I'm too busy to work out, I'm too busy to do this or that, I'm too busy to take on learning an instrument, too busy. Okay, let me see your cell phone time. Let me look in the
That's
settings
right.
and see how much screen time you have on your computer, on your cell phone, with Facebook, with Instagram, with TikTok, with YouTube, with Netflix. Let me take a look at that. I'm curious. I bet it's a lot. I bet it's a lot more than you'd care to believe it is.
Right.
And we're not good multitaskers. It's something called task switching. When we're going back and forth, we're putting our attention on one thing, then the other. It can take 2 to 5 minutes to recalibrate and refocus.
I'm
And
glad you
that,
mentioned that because I'm not
yeah,
against multitasking, even though I'm great at it. But here's the problem. I noticed it's fight or flight mode. The heart rate goes up is no different than me watching a movie with the plane crash or me being stressed out. And so even though it's not maybe stressful, maybe you're like just getting stuff done and you're jamming, you're in a good mood. Uh I learned like I would look at the heart rate monitor and stuff and I'm like, what am I doing to myself? I'm putting myself in fight or flight. It's not totally super negative, but it's negative to my body. And that's when I started to be like, I gotta stop that. I gotta stop that. And the reason I ruined my hands is I typed at like 100 miles an hour. Do you know what I mean? I did everything at
mhm.
100 miles an hour. I'm a fast talker. Everyone's like, oh, you're really quick at stuff. Too fast, too quick, not in the present, fight or flight, like you said, being in the wrong state. So now, as much as sometimes I'm inclined to be like, oh, I want to do 5 things at once, I'm like, nope, do that, do that, do that. I don't do that anymore because I just noticed what it did to my body.
Exactly. And Cal Newport talks about deep work. Tim Ferriss talks about this, like batching, like type of focused work, like especially in that first few hours of the day before you check your cell phone and go down the rabbit hole of emails, or you're at your computer at
Yes.
the office. Like, give yourself 2 hours of focused time, non-distracted time, to knock out one big task. And I'd love to do that. And I certainly love to start my day the right way in the morning, before I get out of bed, and have a great morning routine. And that's what's been shown, is that really successful people have two things in common. They have a dialed morning routine, and they're expert reframers. They're really good at seeing the opportunity in something, seeing the positive in something, and they constantly are reframing. That's actually an NLP skill too, but like that's really key, that you're an experimenter. Like Thomas Edison said, now I know what it's not. Like, it's not a failed experiment. Now I know what it's not. So you're exploring, you're creative, you're giving yourself license, you're granting yourself grace, and you're seeing the positive and the potential in things. And those two things are really key. Like, morning routine is how you start your day, how you own your day, instead of the day owning you. Like, if the alarm clock goes off, and you roll out of bed and you stayed up way too late because you were watching Game of Thrones or a ball game or whatever, and you got 5 hours of sleep, and now your neurons are actually firing slower, like they've shown in data, and you need energy because you're in a state of insufficient cellular energy, your brain energy gap. And so you reach for caffeine, you reach for sugar, a donut, a honey bun, or whatever, your Red Bull or your coffee, and that's what you need to try and make it. And then of course you're not going to make as good of decisions because that takes more energy. You're going to like fall back on bad decisions, and then you're going to be struggling through your day because you're checking emails, you're exhausted, you're distracted, you're just finding distractions because you don't want to focus. Then you have a crappy meal for lunch, then you're looking for a candy bar and soda, then you're making your way through traffic, then you're laying on your couch, I'm exhausted, why did I do this? And then you're watching TV again. And like, just 5 or 10 minutes in the morning, like where a light slowly comes on and gets brighter, where chimes slowly come in and get a little louder, and you do some box breathing, like 8 seconds in, 8 seconds hold, 8 seconds out, 8 seconds hold. Do that like 4 times. You do some gratitude, like I'm so thankful that I'm here today, that I'm alive, that the sun's out, that I have a job, that I have heat, light, water, that I have a dog that's licking my face, that I have a car, I have, all these things that are amazing. Then do some affirmations that, today's going to be an awesome day. I'm going to meet someone new today. I'm going to have an impact on someone today, that I'm beautiful, that I'm sexy, that I'm happy, that I'm successful. Because all those are states of being, like I was saying, they're not achievements, they're states of being. You can be happy, successful, sexy now if you want to be. And then you get out of bed, do some light stretching for a couple minutes, drink a full glass of water. That's 5 to 10 minutes. And then when you get to work, do that deep work for 2 hours. And then it's now 10 o'clock and you can start your intermittent fasting, because I believe, according to Dr. Sachin Panda's data, it should be during the daylight hours. If you're doing an 8 and 16, that it would be from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. would be that eating window. So now you can have something to eat. And like, look at your day so far. You're hydrated, you're stretched, you've had affirmations, gratitude, you've gotten a lot done. Now you're about to eat something that's healthy for you. You fasted. Like, that's amazing so far. And that doesn't take more time. That isn't more difficult. It doesn't cost any more money. And those things are going to free up time. You're going to have more time for the gym, more time for conversations, more time to be present.
What are some of these ingredients you talk about in your book? Can you touch on a few things that people might not be aware of, but you're like, hey, if you're in this situation, this is something that might be helpful to you to look into. Want to rattle off a few of those?
Yeah, 100%. So L-beta, beta amino isobutyric acid, L-beta, the patent name is mitoburn, and it's an exercise mimetic similar to the research chemicals ACAR, GW 50156. You might not know those, but this is a signal in the body that occurs naturally, that when you're exercising intensely, it tells the body that that's what's happening. And so everything associated with high intensity exercise is associated with elevated levels of beta. So this supplement, exogenously taken, raises plasma levels of beta, and therefore you get faster adaptations. You get more VO2 max, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, more bone mineral density, more muscle mass, less fat mass, improved glycogen utilization. All that stuff is going to be elevated from taking that supplement. So that's a really cool one. Grains of Paradise, that the trademark name is Caloraburn. That one's a spice that comes from Africa. It increases brown adipose tissue activation. Brown adipose tissue, we know, is upregulated with cold thermogenesis when you're jumping in, cold plunge, cold showers, things like that. That increases thermogenesis. You burn more calories. It's brown adipose tissue. You only have about 6 to 7 ounces on your body, and it's mitochondrial dense. That's why it's brown. And so it's the fat burning fat, if you will. It's very different from white adipose tissue. So this is a really cool compound. 40 milligrams has been shown to burn over 100 calories a day in one dose, and it's non-stimulant. We don't know if taking 80 milligrams or taking it twice a day, what that does. There's still more research to be done, but it's cool stuff. Definitely could be good in conjunction with the cold plunges. Dihydroberberine. Metformin has been shown to extend life by maybe as much as 2 years. There's actually a study going on now with 3,000 people on metformin. That should be interesting data. Glycation, advanced glycation end products literally age you. That's the acronym.
Weren't they saying though that there were some issues? I thought I saw something and I didn't look into it fully, could be wrong, where metformin, or there was some issue with a recall on it or something that was cancerous about it. Okay, I just want to put that out.
Exactly.
Because also, I believe people are put on metformin too soon. It's the woman that goes in and they're like, oh, you have polycystic ovarian syndrome. Here's metformin. And they're not looking at all the other stuff you and I would tell them to do first.
Right.
But yeah,
Yep.
so I just want to bring
100%.
that up.
Yep. So it was tainted. Also, metformin does cause B12 deficiency, and it does have GI distress for about a third of the users. But what's cool is head to head, berberine, the botanical equivalent, has been shown to be more effective than metformin, the drug.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And even cooler is a form that I patented, dihydroberberine. When berberine gets to the GI tract, it converts to dihydroberberine. And dihydroberberine is about 5 to 10 times more bioavailable and stays more elevated about 2 times as long in the plasma. So you have to take it less and you have to take much lower doses, which is really cool. But it's probably the most powerful anti-aging compound that I know of. It's
The
been,
berberine.
yeah, and now dihydroberberine, yeah, exactly, because it's lowering glycation, inflammation, improving lipids, improving oxidation. Like, it's actually a mitohormetic compound. It's like causes a positive stress at that dose on the mitochondria and increases mitochondrial biogenesis. So it's just potently anti-aging. It's probably the best compound I know of. So those are some that come off the top of my head. I've also worked on one called tetrahydrocurcumin that solves some of the bioavailability issues and also the yellow staining issue of curcumin. And it's a downstream metabolite of curcumin. It's more potent.
See, and again, I'm sure people listening are like, what? I don't even know any of this. This is why you have to get his book, because he goes through all of this in
Yeah.
such great detail. What are what are you excited? What are you excited? I mean, we're all excited after this is all over. When life is back to normal, of course, hugging friends, being able to just, be social. Is there anything you're looking forward to? Is there a trip, or is there something you're like, I've been waiting for this thing to end so I can go do X?
Honestly, like I really miss hugging people like you. Like
Yeah.
there's a group of my tribe of cerebral professional influencer friends that are like kind of all in the same circles as me. Like that's like my closest tribe. And like, we only get like 2 3 4 times a year like to connect at these conferences, but it's like so special to me. And I really miss that. Like I really want conferences back, not virtual stuff. Like I really want the hugs. I really want to be in person. I really want to go to the dinners and just hang out with, you and all of our good friends in biohacking, paleo, keto, fasting, like in wellness. I miss that. And that's the thing I'm looking forward to most, for sure.
I just want to let everyone know too, Shawn's Instagram, he's very active on social media, always putting out great content, great posts about nutrients, what you need. I mean, really, I would go follow him, and we'll of course put everything in the show notes to follow you. But what is your IG handle right now in case someone's listening and they want to check you out?
Yeah, it's at Shawn Wells, ShawnWellS. And I have ShawnWells.com where I have newsletters and guides and all that cool stuff. Energyformula.com where you get all the bonuses in the book. And then I've been doing Clubhouse lately. I don't know if you're on there, Elle, but we need to.
I'm on, but I haven't
room.
I'm
Okay.
on there technically, but I haven't yet done it yet.
So I'm at biohacking on Clubhouse, and I've been doing a room almost like once a day or something. So
Just talking about various.
on keto, on paleo, on supplements, on psychoactive, like things like psilocybin, ayahuasca, things like that as well. So yeah, doing a lot of cool stuff on there. It's been really, really fun. I've enjoyed it. So yeah, we need to do a room together.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to let everyone know too, the energy formula, this massive book. You guys have to get it because look, the hard copy is your regular hard copy price. It's 99 cents on Kindle, guys. Shawn was so nice to do that because when you publish on Amazon, you have the choice to make things extremely cheap for this or and to make it available at that price is incredible. And I asked him, I was like, hey, why'd you do that? And he's like, because I just want the information in people's hands. That is so Shawn. So it's such a wonderful, I'm like, oh, I love that. I mean, I agree with that too. I love that. So yeah, you can get a badass hard copy, but you can also really get on there, get a Kindle copy for like, I think I just saw it for like 99 cents, which is insane deal because that hard copy is $40. So you guys get on it because there's so much information here that's worthwhile. And again, Shawn's, you could just tell by hearing you. I mean, you geek out on this stuff, things on a level most of us don't. You are essentially like a chemist to some degree. And Well, you are. And so it's fascinating to hear your opinion on all of these things. Again, even just the few that you mentioned that a lot of us are like, wait, what? I've never even heard of that. What is that? And so I just find that it's a very unique book that way because it's shedding light on some things that most people do not talk about, don't know about. And then you're going to go through all of these, like you said, the acronym for energy. Um, what would you like to leave our audience with? If there's anything you can share with people in terms of energy or health or just this journey you've been on, what would you like to leave our audience with there?
Oh man. Like really, it is that self-love has to be the foundation. It sounds like I love how biohacking has gone from magnets in the fingers and chips in the head and all this stuff to then bulletproof coffee and supplements and interval training, and now it's like gratitude journals and breath work and and plant medicine, and we're really seeing the evolution, like an awakening right now, certainly in culture. I'm seeing like plant medicine grow at an exponential rate, breath work, and all of these things. We're seeing that be critical. That self-love really needs to be that foundation. And for me, that was a really big learning. I was trying to repair the car going 80 miles an hour down the road. Like I wasn't pit stopping and getting a tune up. And we need that. We need that time that you were talking about, like with Mark Sisson. Like that's so critical for us to be productive, to be able to tap into our maximum potential. We need those periods of rest. We need those periods of being present, being mindful, and self-care. And that's literally the most critical piece to all the biohacks. All the other biohacks should be optimizations on top of that as a foundation.
I agree. Thank you so much for pouring your heart into this work, all the stuff that you do for everyone. This is incredible. And again, we'll put everything in the show notes to connect with Shawn and get his book, The Energy Formula. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Elle. Really
All right.
appreciate it.
Yeah, you too. All right. I will talk to you soon, offline, and everyone else, we will see you next week.